Hello again. Today's footage is kind of boring. It is just continuing on and getting things ready. As you can see there, this room actually gets pretty dark. The footage is starting out on the 16th, and I needed to get some prep work done. I had a little bit of borax solution that I needed to just get rid of, so I'm working on just spraying some stuff, because basically there's no, like, having extra borax on things is not going to hurt anything. It is supposedly a non-toxic chemical. It's a natural occurring chemical that I'm not a chemist, I don't pretend to know, but it is purported to interfere with the ability for bugs to digest the wood. So and mold also apparently has a hard time growing when there's borax crystals. And I kind of wonder if that part is just because once it's dry, it helps maybe absorb some of the moisture a little bit, so it makes it harder for the mold to find a place to grow. I don't know, but it's one of the things that is reported by the Forest Service that you can use to help treat lumber once it's been sprayed. And so that's what we do. The formula that I use started out as 10 ounces per gallon, I think, is what it actually is. Basically what it works out to be is that if I do a 4-gallon batch, then that's half a box of borax, about 2 pounds. So that's the easy way that I do it, is I just do a big pot and bring it to a boil, and then turn the stove off and add the borax, let it sit for a few minutes, and then pour it into the containers. Although I've learned you'll see here in a minute, I've learned that you probably shouldn't put it into the containers when it's actually hot. So now I've been trying to do the borax like in the morning, and then that afternoon I'll go spray it in, and the water retains its heat pretty well, so it tends to stay fairly warm. And you can't really tell. This makes me nervous just watching this. But I couldn't think of a better way or better place to just spread out the boards and be able to just spray them in a big chunk. I was actually working towards trying to figure out how much coverage this actually took for one batch of borax, and it covered quite a few, surprisingly. I was really rather pleased. And to be honest, I'm going to have to do the calculations again, because I forgot to write them down now that I'm thinking about that. And I don't recall how many actual boards. I guess we can get a little bit of a rough count here by the end of this video. So I'll pause that and throw that up there. But these are all 2x12, 2x10, 2x8, and 2x6, and that's actually cut right at 2 inches for the where the mill is set. So as long as I'm staying in the middle of in between the two trailer sidewalls, then theoretically I'm safe and stable. But it still makes me pretty darn nervous to be up there. So I take every chance I can to not be standing. The 2x8 or larger are all getting stacked to the left of the screen at the front of the trailer, because those are going to go straight over to become floorboards. The 2x6 size is getting put all back on the pallet, because I don't know when I'll actually need that, but they'll get used for various construction projects. For instance, we've decided that we're going to build casement windows instead of going to buy windows, so the window frames, basically, we kind of worked out where we want those, and they're going to get just cut out, so there will at least be an opening to help ensure the lumber is all drying properly. Most of it's, for the most part, dry. I haven't bothered to check with a moisture meter yet, but I will soon. And this, what I'm going through right now, is actually the reason that I like to keep the spray warm. When it gets cold, the crystals can tend to fall out of solution, and then you get a big crystal chunk that plugs up the sprayer nozzle. And it's just frustrating to have to fight with that. It was close enough to empty that I just figured I'd call that good and bring the little, I've got two, a little 1 gallon and then the big 3 gallon. And I'm going to put this back into real time here in a second. But first I have to break the pallet. I was trying to adjust where it was, and I didn't realize that it was actually caught on the edge of the trailer, and it popped the screws out, so I gotta take a minute to fix that. I'm actually gonna have to modify this pallet. I've had problems with it. This is the first one I built, and I measured the length of the pallet forks and built it accordingly, but I didn't really account for the fact that the pallet forks, just for stability and ease of use, should probably go further than the edge of the pallet. That way, if something is hanging off the one side and you can't get the pallet forks all the way to the edge of the pallet, then you have a little bit of leeway. And since this is built the exact length of the pallet forks, if there's any gap between the pallet and the back of the pallet forks, then it means I can't do anything. And right there, here we're gonna put this in real time. Yep. Apparently the plastic was a little weaker than it should have been. And now I have spare parts. It actually kind of turned out to be a fantastic thing. They put like a little 3-foot hose, and I ended up getting a barb coupler and cutting the opposing ends off of the two different hoses and combining them into one like 6-foot long hose, and that has made this pump so much easier to use. Like when it's a 3-foot hose, you literally have to hold it the entire time and you carry it around with you, and there's just no option otherwise. That extra 3 feet means I can actually pump it up and set it down and kind of move around and walk a little bit, and then come back and grab it and move it, which isn't a big deal, but when you're just carrying around a 3-gallon container plus the weight of the container plus the weight of the borax, it just adds up after a while. But that's okay. So, trying to figure out, Emily was working on a different project, and she wanted to make sure she was doing things safely, so I had to pause and watch for a second. We were given a ceramic flower pot that didn't have any kind of holes for drainage, and she wanted to make sure that it had drainage so that whatever she plants in it isn't going to end up being soaked through and having, mold and rot and root rot issues. So she was using the grinder with a masonry cutting disc for the first time. And now I'm just going and getting some more boards from the second stack, so that I can use up the rest of this borax solution. Like I said, I was pretty pleased how far it actually got. So far we're at 4 2x10s, 2 2x12s, 7 2x8s, and 12 2x6s. And then I'm doing these ones one at a time, pretty much, so that I can make sure I get a reasonably close estimation, so that I just know, kind of know how far it goes. That's something I need to account for when I think about the cost of, milling my own lumber. Is you got to account for time, you got to account for the fuel into the machine, treatment, things like that, and then if it is going to be something that's finish lumber, then you've got to account for the planing time as well, to bring that down to an actual finished product. And that's something that I will have to do later, because it'll probably be a little while before we get around to replacing my planer. I don't want to have to risk having another one run into moisture issues because it's not in a building. And since the next planer I get will be a nice big full planer, not a little tabletop bench planer, that's gonna be a bigger purchase than I'm willing to just leave out there. So, all right. So the final count was 21 there for the 2x6s. So, like I said, that was a pretty good amount for one little batch, and that's again half a box of borax into a 4-gallon container. And now we're going to come in and try and get some final preps done, so we can get cracking on this floor again. So here's some of the preps that I mentioned in the last video. This is one of those boards that I was mentioning that I had put in here so that the floor riser can rest on this and be secured. The downside to doing it this way is that it ultimately leads to a little bit less insulation in this particular area. But the upside is that it allows that floor to be more secure and not have as high of a potential issue problem. And this board, or this riser, was built intentionally to fit in there quite tightly. And so that took a little bit of wiggling to get that in. But now that it's in, I can secure everything, and Emily's going to work on cutting me some additional lumber. Or at least I thought she was. I didn't realize she had actually left. Huh. Well, okay. Anyway, I was measuring this particular piece off of the And you can see those screws I was putting in are just in place. They're not fully secured. That way I can attach this piece to lock that in so that it's straight all the way across, and then I can finish sinking those screws. And take a second to admire my handiwork there, but that's where we end for the footage for today. So our next video will be doing the actual subfloor. So thank you as always for watching. God bless you and yours, and stay safe out there. Stay safe out there.